was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe yesterday.
Well, good afternoon, dear teachers. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. On behalf of Nutesa, welcome to our Nutesa's International Summer Course. Hello, Patty, how are you? Good afternoon, Patricia.
Good afternoon, Lourdes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here again. This is our third session, okay, of our Nutesa's International Summer Course. But before, we have something for you to remember. Today, on this session, I am going to read these guidelines, okay, and then I go for, with Benji. First, you have to mute your microphones, please, during the sessions for not interrupting the speaker. Certificates will be awarded by session, and to obtain them, you must attend all the complete sessions, only for the attending to the Zoom, okay, room. You must fill in the link in the chat box. Aime, our commercial representative, is going to be placing in the chat box a link, and you can fill in, please, you have to fill in for your certificate and also for participating in our raffle at the end of this session. Remember this, right? Of course, we are going to be sending your certificates from March 7th on. At the end of this session, as I mentioned, you are going to receive, before the raffle, okay, you are going to receive a link for a survey. Este link para la encuesta es muy importante también para nosotros. Nosotros contamos con su opinión, es muy valiosa para nosotros para seguir mejorando, ¿ok? Eso es antes del sorteo. And of course, don't miss the raffle at the end of each session. And okay, before I have to make you remember that this year, Nutesa is going to be 80 years working for you and with you.
Yes.
Okay, so imagine this is going to be a year
anniversary.
Yes, full of surprises. 80 years, 80 years, okay? So what is next? Benji, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Benji. How are you there in
Hello,
Arequipa?
good afternoon, Miss. Hello, good afternoon from Arequipa. Yes, here. So, yes, let's give a welcome for Miss Elizabeth Taboada, right? So she's from Mexico, and she's a rep from National Geographic. And
Yes.
so we're going to go, the topic of today is building bridges to new teaching environments. So let's read a little bit about her. Elizabeth Taboada, an experienced ELT teacher, academic coordinator, and teacher trainer for about 21 years. Elizabeth has demonstrated great passion for language teaching and learning. She holds a bachelor's degree in English language teaching, and she was awarded Merit in the In-Service Certificate in English Language Teaching, COT. Elizabeth has also taken part as a consultant in design and teaching of several online courses such as TKT and TKT Clio, and collaborated as academic consultant for National Geographic Learning for 7 years in both face-to-face and online sessions. Thank you.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the warm introduction. So good to see everyone here. I'm really, really happy to be celebrating 80 years of Nutesa here with you. Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully, you know, throughout the session, you will find some, you will get to some insights, and you will find some useful strategies for you to take back into your classrooms, and whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face, but it's something that can hopefully help you cope with whatever the situation is for your institution. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm going to start sharing my presentation. Now, Besides all the rules that Patricia already told you, there is another, not exactly a rule, but more like a request. Throughout the session, throughout the presentation, you will see some QR codes. So please, it will be really, really interesting, and it would really like to hear from you. So feel free to scan, have your devices with you. Just scan the QR code, and it will take you straight to a Padlet. I'm going to show it to you in a little while, so that you can, interact with us, right? So it's a fun way. It's something that you can also use with your students, right? It's a link, it's a QR code, it takes you to the page, you click anywhere on the page, and it lets you start writing. You can write anonymously, you can write your name. So please feel free to do it, and we would really appreciate it, just so that you can see how that tool works, okay? So I'm going to get right to it, right? Because time is precious. So yeah, today's session is building bridges to new teaching environments. You've already learned about flipped classroom. You've already learned about the importance of storytelling. So what I would like to do is how do we put all in a pot, right? How do we blend all of those learnings that you have acquired already, and plus the experience that you have had? So today's menu is, first, we're going to reflect on who are we teaching, right? What about this new breed of students that is, coming about, that has changed so much during the last few years, and especially in the last couple of years with the pandemic and with isolation and things like that. So how are they changing? How do we have to change as educators? What are the challenges that we are facing currently, or that we might face in a very near future? And finally, how do we re-engineer? So that's why, talking about bridges, right? Bridges are a product of engineering. So how do we re-engineer our learning environment? What is it that we need, or what does it have to look like to a successful classroom, or a smart classroom? A smart classroom, but not in the technological sense, but more in the holistic sense, right? So let's get right to it. So the first thing that I would like to read to you is this quote from a Kimball Learning paper, which says, "A new breed of students is reshaping the face of education," right? Which is what I was telling you about a few seconds ago. This generation of students who are completely and totally different from what we used to be, from other generations. They have been affected by other factors that have caused them to change and to evolve into something, and we cannot stay behind. Our system, our educational system, our strategies in the classroom, whether it's face-to-face or online, they cannot be left behind either. So we have to move at a faster pace. And so how do we do that? So the first thing that I want you to do is to get your phones and scan this QR code and participate in answering our question. What are some of the characteristics of such breed of students? So you can either scan the QR code, or I think I can share the link as well. Let me see. I'm gonna share it in the, oh, sorry. Yeah, I think it's better if you just, if you scan the code, let me know if it works. Just point at it, and it will take you to a Padlet. And on that Padlet, I'm going to show you how it come out. This is a Padlet, right? And it's a tool that we're going to be using. It's pretty much a board for you to share your ideas. You can personalize it. You can create a background. You can give it a name. You can upload GIFs, pictures, music, videos, whatever you can think of. So it's an awesome tool. Please make sure that you visit it and start sharing your comments with us. So what are they like? What are these students like, right? So for example, here I added a GIF. Let me know if it works. I want to see your comments, so you can click anywhere and start writing. So just click on the plus sign and start writing your comments. Okay, well, we'll go back to the board a little bit later. all right, to see your comments there. So please make sure you use it. So just so that you can get an idea of how it works as well. Okay, so moving on. Some of the characteristics of these students, what is it that they do? What is it that they crave? What is it that they are interested in? What about these new breed of students, right? So some of their traits are that they are increasingly mobile, right? So they are their phone, their computer, so they take their world with them everywhere they go, right? They are multitasking, especially when it comes to ICT, right? With soft skills, they are very, very good at that. They can be on the computer and on the phone, or on the computer and TV. So they are very multitasking when it comes to communication and technology. They are networked. Now, here on these last 3 traits, networked, interactive, and social, probably this interaction or this the way they socialize doesn't really look the way that we socialized or the way we interacted back in the day, right? So it's completely different, but they do have a network. Probably it's a virtual one, right? Their community, their game community, if they are into video games, their game community is a way for them to interact and is a way for them to develop social skills. Probably not the social skills that we developed. And that's what we have to bear in mind, right? So they still have to develop social skills, but it's us as teachers who have to explore and get into that world on what is it that they're doing? How is it that they are interacting with one another, right? How is it that they are social beings without the need of, probably talking face-to-face to someone, right? And also they have low tolerance for lecture style. They really dislike, the teacher being in front of the classroom and just lecturing them and telling them why they should do this, why, they have to cover this content, or they really, really dislike that. So these are some of the traits from our new breed of students, right? If you can think of others, please make sure you visit the wall, the Padlet, and enter your comments there. So what are some of the challenges that we face? First of all, an increased focus on informal learning, right? And we saw it in the last couple of years, right? So there's a difference between formal and informal learning, right? Which is a little bit like synchronous and asynchronous learning. So we're going to go into detail in a little while. A growing gap of prior knowledge. So these are kind of some of the things that we need to take into account now that we plan our lessons and when we are about to teach any kind of content, whatever your subject matter is, these are things that you need to take into account. There's a mismatch of individual career paths versus the development of workforce. And we're going to see what that means in a little while. So there's an increased focus on informal and informal learning, right? On informal learning versus formal learning, sorry. So back then in the day, a few years ago, it was 90% formal learning and 10% informal learning, parents helping out their children, cope with homework, or probably they hired a tutor, right? And to help the kid with, I don't know, with math or with something they were struggling with. But now, it's completely different. It's 50% formal learning and 50% informal learning, and it's increasing by the minute, right? So what does this tell us? That our students are learning, obviously, not only from what we teach them in the classroom, but that the great exposure that they have to information, to technology, that's informal learning outside the classroom without the need of us telling them, go look for this, go look for that, but it's kind of intrinsic, it's increasing, right? They are becoming more informal learners, right? And they can learn everywhere they are. They don't need the classroom. They don't need the 4 walls in the classroom to learn, right? Any place is a good place to learn, and we're going to explore that idea in a little while. There's a growing gap in prior knowledge, and it's a result of informal learning or an increase in informal learning. What does that mean? A few years ago, we said, okay, so I have to take into account students' prior knowledge, right? And you kind of had a general idea of what students knew as a generality, right? Obviously, you have always had above level students or below level students, right? So that's a given, but we kind of could plan for a generality of students, but not anymore, right? Now, because they are more informal learners, then they are able to retrieve information from a variety of resources. They are exposed to information that is not teacher-led, and it impacts each learner differently. So what we think students might know as prior knowledge might be completely different from one group to another, or even from one student to another. And what is the consequence of this? Well, probably your lesson plan or the way you plan your content might not be suitable for all of them, right? So that's a challenge that we're facing. It makes it harder to prepare unstructured courses. That's what I was just telling you, right? So the fact that they are informally learning, they are not the same. They do not have the same prior knowledge. They are not the same level, or they are not. Yeah, they practically have. You can have half of your group, above level, half of your group average, and probably a very few, probably none, below level. So yeah, it's changing quite rapidly. All right, let's see. Now, mismatch of individual career paths versus the development of workforce. What does that mean? Well, same thing. We're going to do the comparison, right? Before, you had to prepare for a future job, right? Get your major, get your bachelor's, whatever you needed to do. Then you went ahead and you got the job, right? You performed the job, and then you probably, if your company required it, you got additional schooling, right? Probably paid by you, probably paid by the company. But now, what is happening? What is changing, right? There are new forms of industries. There are new forms of jobs. Sometimes the individuals in the classroom are not specifically equipped to perform some of those jobs. And that's why many companies, such as Google, or in the United, well, this Swedish company IKEA, the furniture company, they have changed their work environment to one learn while on the job environment. So now they understand that these individuals might not have the full set of skills that they need to perform the job. And what have they done? They have created spaces within their own companies for their employees to continue learning while on the job, so that they can, catch up and get up to date with new skills or with new just learnings that they have to acquire. Okay, so it sounds pretty, pretty drastic, right? So yeah, our students are completely different. We have to get ready for them, and we have to make some changes in order to cater for most of them. Probably not for all of them, we wish, but for most of them, and find ways and different paths to do so. So now I want you to answer this question. What does a smart learning environment look like to you? What is it? What is a smart learning environment like? Okay, again, scan the code, share your thoughts with us. It would be really amazing if you can share some comments with us. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing this and share the Padlet again and show you a different kind of Padlet. Okay. All right, let's see. Let me refresh it. Awesome. Okay. All right, there's the other wall, right? Mirror, mirror on the wall. That's the one that you have to input your comment in. And like I said, you can add music, GIFs, videos, content, a link, right? So here you can have a song. So it's a pretty dynamic tool. I love it, especially because it allows you to look at what your students are thinking. They can do this within the class, after class, it's always open for them. As long as they have the link or the QR, they can participate. Awesome. So here we're going to go back to some of the comments we got. Children, we are going to share our knowledge, our students who have suffered a lot. Maybe some of them have lost their parents. Yes, exactly. They are really sad. Our job is going to be really hard. For sure, 100%. Give them extra motivation instead of knowledge, right? Reinforce their emotional and social abilities, for sure. Yeah, 100%, right? And here we have online learning, face-to-face learning, hybrid learning. Okay, thank you for sharing. And you can keep on answering the questions, right? All I have to do is refresh it and we will see your comments. Okay, so please feel free to share your views. What does a smart environment look like? Okay. All right, so let's wait for your ideas on the Padlet, but in the meantime, let's see what it looks like or what we expect to promote in our smart environment, right? Whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face, our learning environment must be flexible, collaborative, and technology rich, right? In a few words or in a single word, it has to be dynamic. And what's the meaning of dynamic? And that's why I wanted to point it out in this slide. It's characterized by constant change, activity, or progress. So ever changing. Right? We cannot provide our students the same dynamic, the same sitting arrangement, the same type of content, the same type of teaching strategy, the same type of exam every single time. It has to be constantly changing. It has to be progressing, right? And that's the challenge that we have. We're going to explore a little bit on what it means to be flexible, collaborative, and technology rich. Flexible, what does that mean? That you provide your students with a balance between formal and informal learning opportunities. Like I said, any place is a good learning place. So make sure that you, if obviously when the time allows it, if your institution allows it, and you know, when it's face-to-face, make sure that your students, you know, visit the cafeteria, the hallways, right? I mean, obviously depending on the guidelines of your institution, but just bear in mind that any place is a good learning place. So changing the environment, changing the place, the location in which the venue in which you're teaching your lesson could actually make an impact on your students. So make sure that you promote social spaces or collaboration spaces, or in some schools, they even have a maker space, right? In which students can, you know, exploit their creativity and actually build things and create things, right? So there's really not the best place to learn. Any place is a good learning place, right? And also online, well, just ask your students probably on next lessons, you say, okay, let's do something. You always take your lesson in your room. Tomorrow, let's do it, I don't know, somewhere else, in another room in your house, or probably in your garden, right? Change that pace, change what surrounds your students so that it doesn't become, you know, monotonous for them, right? So this is how we re-engineer education, by changing, by evolving, by promoting, by encouraging, right? And we have to evolve with them as well. Okay, so here's another one. And this is something that I really, really want to point out, because someone was talking about motivation and promoting not only knowledge, but also social emotional skills and, you know, thinking skills as such, life skills. And this is something that obviously our students, our learners appreciate, right? Because they take it wherever they go, it goes beyond, they are transferable and they go beyond the classroom doors. So how do we re-engineer education when it comes to collaborative aspects? We can have performance tasks. What is a performance task? A performance task, sorry, is some sort of project in which students get a real life role, right? So if you're talking, let's say, about imperatives, right? I'm going to go on a limb and say you're working on imperative sentences. So then what could be a good performance task? Well, probably you tell your students, okay, you are in charge of the security committee in, I don't know, an institution, at school, right? And you have to develop a campaign on what to do or what not to do in case of a disaster, in case of an earthquake, in case of a hurricane, right? So those are actions or tasks that a normal person who is a member of that group would have in real life, right? You are a travel agent, right? Or you are, I don't know, a fashion designer. So those are performance tasks. Give our students real life roles with real life situations for them to perform, right? And visible thinking skills. And for visible thinking skills, here's the link to the page. It's part of the Project Zero from Harvard University. And visible thinking skills are ways in which we can help our students build their thinking, right? And there are lots of opportunities there to, obviously they are divided into subjects, but there is a visible thinking toolkit for teachers. It's free, you can download it, you can reproduce it, and they are used for literature or for science or for social. So for example, think, pair, share, right? So you give your students some time to think, to write ideas, pair, share with each other, and then share with the rest of the class. That is a visible thinking skills. What does it involve? It involves me with my thoughts, putting down my thoughts on paper or type in my thoughts, share them with someone, right? Socializing, networking, comparing and contrasting, and then sharing with the rest of the class. So Project Zero from Harvard Education has really cool, interesting, and useful ideas, handouts, everything you need, you can find it here, and it's an amazing site. So make sure you go ahead and visit it. There's the QR for you to go ahead and visit it. And like I said, they are downloadable, so feel free to browse them. And this is how we can create collaboration, right? With performance tasks in which students have to solve real life issues, and with visible thinking skills, okay, which are translated into life skills. Okay, now, how do we re-engineer education in terms of technology? Remember, we said that our smart classroom has to be flexible, it has to be collaborative, it has to be technologically rich, right? So obviously, I don't have to tell you this, there are tens or hundreds of apps that you can use in your classroom, right? One of them is Padlet, the one that we are using to collect your thoughts, your ideas, Edmodo, Pazojo, Google Classrooms, Kahoot, which I'm sure many of you already used, right? And here I wanted to share some others, right? So there's PBS Kids and Games, if you teach young learners, right? They have lessons on values, right? It's not only a language source, but it's also values content, cross-curricular content as well, right? Brain Pop, which is a great source for young learners. There's a free version for all of these apps, and there's also obviously the paid version. And the Khan Academy, obviously that's for everyone, that's for any kind of age, right? For young learners, or middle school, high school, college, right? Adults. There's Quizlet. Quizlet allows you to create exams or, quizzes, basically. It has lots of tools for you to create quizzes for your students. This is more suitable for high school students. I'm going to show you what they look like in a little while. Evernote, which is a great tool for students to take notes. And it's oriented for college students, so probably between high school and college. Newsela is an amazing source because it gives you news articles that are written depending on the level. I'm sorry, that are written. If you could mute your microphone, please. All right, so Nutesa is an app that allows you to access news articles written according to the level of your student. So you can find really easy articles, but they are in article form. So it's authentic language, but kind of like aimed at a certain demographic or a certain age or a certain level, right? And Dragonbox is mainly math, and it's I think it's a parent company of Kahoot. So it's math. It has lots of games for math as well. So make sure that you explore all of these apps, that you start including more apps in your in your teaching, in your day-to-day, right? So yeah, these are just some examples. We will explore them in a little while. And so we've already gone through flexibility, collaboration, and technology rich, right? And now, what is a dynamic kind of environment? Well, you already went through flipped classroom, right? We also have the game-based approach, right? Which is a gamification approach, right? And problem solving, simulations, choice of projects, and inquiry-based learning. Now, in order for you to create this dynamic that we are expecting in order to have a smart environment, you have to alternate between all of these approaches. So it's, for this lesson, I'm going to use a flipped classroom approach, but for another lesson, I'm going to use more like a problem solving approach, right? Or for another one, I'm going to use a simulation approach, right? Obviously, this also has to do with the mission and vision of each institution, right? Your institution is the one that gives you the guidelines on how your teaching must be arranged. But it would be a good idea if you could start bringing in ideas on how to alternate between different approaches. Because like I said, if it's something that students do not like or do not appreciate, is routine. What they do appreciate is an ever-changing classroom, right? Knowing that today, I don't know what I'm going to find, but I know that it's going to be fun. I know it's going to be different. And I know it's going to be something that the teacher has created and curated for us, for his or her class, right? So problem solving, the typical, if you had been on an island, what would you do, right? Third conditional kind of approach. Simulations, right? Which is a little bit linked to performance tasks, right? If you are this person and you are the other person, complain to each other, fix a complaint, solve the complaint, right? Choice of projects. This is something really interesting. Give your students more than one option when it comes to projects, right? So that is something that they really appreciate. It gives them a sense of control, but in a good way, right? So obviously you can tell them, okay, this is a project and this is what I'm going to grade, right? That's it, clear cut. But they kind of appreciate the fact that they can say, I chose to do this. And chances are your students would appreciate it more and put a lot more effort on something that they chose rather than on something that they feel was imposed, right? I know that you didn't impose it, but that's probably sometimes what they feel like, right? Like I have to do this, as opposed to I chose to do this, right? And inquiry-based learning, right? So go over concepts, over big ideas, establish a big question to explore throughout your unit, bring resources for students to research, involve students into the research, right? Have them share their sources, okay? So we already went through the four aspects, right? The dynamism, technologically rich, flexible, and collaborative. Those are some of the aspects that we need in order to re-engineer education. So how do we know that our environment is effective with all of these changes and with all of these things that we have brought into the classroom? How do we know that it is working, right? So in a highly effective learning environment, your students should ask more questions than the teacher. There's more inquiry on the side of students, right? Rather than on the teacher. Obviously, this takes practice. This is really important. This is not going to happen overnight. These changes, this evolution is not going to happen overnight. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes trial and error as well, right? Some of these things are going to work wonderfully. Some of these things are going to need a little more time, but don't give up. Don't give up on your students, right? And also, it's a learning path for us as teachers, right? So like I said, in a highly effective learning environment, students ask more questions than the teacher. Questions are valued over answers, right? So I don't really care if you have the answer or not. I care about someone else that you can bring to the table, something that a new inquiry that you bring to the table and that you bring to your peers, right? Now, this is something really interesting. Ideas come from divergent sources. What does that mean? So obviously, most of the times we resort to books, to online material, right? Or printed material, whether it's articles, journals. But how about bringing our community into the classroom, right? How about bringing parents? How about bringing people from the, from the school body, from the faculty with different areas of expertise, right? How about bringing people that have probably opposing ideas and have your students explore those ideas, right? So for example, a very controversial topic, and I'm not getting into anything political, but vaccines, right? So you can bring in a nurse or a doctor who talks about why vaccines are important. And then you can bring someone else who says, you know what, I really don't. So it might be a little controversial, but I just wanted to give you an example of what opposing views might look like, right? And divergent sources, okay? Those speakers are not going to be there to tell you whether their idea is right or not. They're just there to explain their point of view. And then you can question or create a discussion with your students as to what are some of the things that they gather from both points of view, from both positions, right? So that creates a little bit more of involvement on the side of your students, right? When you bring people from that are real people that they can see, they can talk to, and real people, I mean, not face to face, but also online, people that they can actually see and say and ask questions as well, right? In a highly effective learning environment, there's also a variety of learning models. Like I said, there's flipped classroom, there's gamification, there's problem solving, there's decision making. So there is a variety making the environment richer, right? The classroom learning empties into a connected community. And by that, this is how is it going to impact the learning that my students are getting? How is it going to directly impact their surroundings? Obviously, we need to make sure that our students understand and see the bigger picture. We want them to be citizens of the world. We want them to, get a hold of multiculturalism, and that they are international students and that they understand different points of view. But how can I promote my students take an active role into their community? So the classroom learning should pour in to their community, right? Okay, now another aspect is learning is personalized through a variety of criteria. So, and this is really important, you involve your students into the criteria that you will assess, right? So you can gather their ideas. Usually what we do is, okay, we have the rubric, or we have the checklist, or we have, right? So it's here, it's clear cut. This is what you have to comply with, right? So how about getting your students involved into what is it that we should, do you think that there's something else that we need to assess? What would be the best way to assess this? What happens, what would be the lowest criteria to assess this project? What would be the highest? What would be in the middle, right? What are some of the keywords that will help you understand what is it that we are going to assess, right? So involve your students into the making of the criteria. And this takes me to the next point. Assessment is persistent, authentic, and transparent, and not punitive. Just like you involve your students into the making of the criteria, that's how they do not feel like you're punishing them, that you are deciding, in a sense, the grade that they are getting, right? It's collaborative. It's something that everyone was involved in, and that also helps with the accountability aspect on the side of your student, right? So yeah, it's not that the teacher is punishing me or is giving me a low grade. I took part into this assessment. I took part into making this criteria, and probably I fell short. I couldn't keep up. I probably can do better next time. So it's accountability on students' end, right? And criteria for success, co-created. This is pretty much summing up what I just told you. Learning habits are constantly modeled. What does that mean? If we want our students to be inquirers, you have to show them that you are an inquirer. If you want students to be curious, then you have to show curiosity. If you want your students to be, I don't know, to become more fonded on each other, then you have to show that you care about them, that you care about their feelings, their state of mind, and things like that. So you have to model all those things that you want to see in your students, right? If they are tech savvy, then you have to show them how to be tech savvy for the greater purpose, not only for the sake of socializing or networking, but how they can put those technological skills to good use in order to benefit their learning, right? And obviously, in an effective learning environment, there is constant and creative opportunities for practice and for growth. Yes, so it's not always, students obviously learn that sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, but what's my end game, and what's going to be my plan to get to that end game? How am I going to get there? How does this experience, how does this failure make me a better learner? Or how does this failure allow me to come up with a different strategy next time for another task, for another project, right? And so pretty much this sums up what a highly effective learning environment would look like, right? And I want to end this presentation with this quote by William Butler Yeats, which reads, "Education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lining of a fire." So education is not us pouring knowledge into our students. It's us igniting that fire, that spark, just so that students know what they're capable of and they can maximize their potential, right? So, well, I hope that you gather a little bit of what I'm trying to share with you. I know that you have many more and better ideas and strategies. We would love to hear from you as well. So drop us a text on the chat or leave a comment on the Padlet. You can, you already have the link to that. So yeah, hopefully this will help you reflect a little bit on what you can't do, and you take what you can do and, you know, get it going right away. Okay, so now probably we can devote this time for questions and answers.
Yes, perhaps we have some questions from
Awesome.
our audience. Yes.
Okay.
Well, in the chat, they are saying that it was an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you.
So much. Yes. Well, they love the quote.
May I ask a question,
Yes,
please?
you're right. We have to ignite. Yes, not just to pour, as you say,
Exactly.
concepts, but
Exactly.
to ignite wisdom in our kids.
For sure.
It's clear, but we have to consider the number of hours. What about it, Elizabeth? The number of hours that most of teachers have in class. You know that they're supposed to have, well, in the past, before the pandemic, they had
Right.
perhaps 5 hours or 4 hours, but
Mhm.
now they have less hours of English in class. How can we deal with it?
Well, I would say that the first thing that you need to take into account, whether it's a considerable number of hours or a reduced number of hours, is your intention. So the first thing you need to have in mind is, okay, this is realistically, this is my time. This is how long I'm going to have, right? 3 hours a week, right? What is it that I can do? Probably it's just one thing, just like the Padlet, right? So on this class, I'm going to bring in the Padlet and I'm going to have my students, I'm going to show them how to use it, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do for this, you know, that's going to be my personal objective or my growth objective. I'm going to bring one tool, one strategy during this week, during this month, during this 2 weeks, but try it. So do not let, I know that the time, time constraints are an issue, most of the time. And sometimes it doesn't really matter if you have 6 hours or 10 hours a week, it's still probably not enough time for you to cover everything. But if you just give some time to bring one thing at a time, like baby steps, I would say eventually you will see the fruits of those, of bringing those strategies into the classroom. So I know that it's hard. You have to comply with content, but probably you can talk to your coordinators as well. Like say, you know what, I have this idea. Probably I might, fall behind a little bit on this content. I might not be able to finish this as such, right? But I'm going to do this, and I think this is going to be good because, right? So it's a little bit like, as we say in Spanish, estira y afloje, right? So give and take.
Yes.
Right? It's you win some, you lose some, but at the end of the day, what remains is
You lose and
that
you try.
have a clear intention on what is it that you want your students to do and carry out.
Yes, thank you. We have a question from Miss Rocio, I think. Yes, she raised her hand. Miss Rocio?
Yeah.
Yes?
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
We are all
Do you
ears.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Elizabeth, hi.
Hi.
I have a question. Because I always thought that English teacher has to speak in English all the time and not even a word in Spanish. What do you think about it?
Well, I can tell you that, especially when students are young, it works. First of all, I want to say it works. So I don't want to be crucified for this, but I do agree. I agree. I'm going to tell you why. Because students are so very exposed to their mother tongue, obviously, to Spanish. They hear Spanish everywhere, everywhere. Most of the, like probably 70% of their time over the 24 hours during the day, they hear Spanish. And I'm going to tell you why I agree that it should be an English-speaking environment. I am raising bilingual children, right? So sometimes, what they least need, and this is proven, I've read articles about it, translation doesn't work. Translation doesn't work when you're trying to raise or to educate or to teach a child into a second language. It doesn't work. Translation doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
So I would say I do agree. Yes,
Yeah.
you have to make an effort. It's a challenge for teachers as well to speak most of the time in English. Probably for very young students, it takes more time, but believe me, they do understand. Obviously, you have to do all sorts of body language, right? You have to accompany your words with signs like, okay, stop. No, we don't do this. All gone, right? So you use a lot of body language if it's with toddlers or with very young learners, right? Yeah, so that's my point of view.
Okay, and when they answer the questions, good. And when they answer the questions, they are allowed to say the words in Spanish, or we have to tell them that it's English or English.
Well, I would say that sometimes students do not feel confident speaking in English. That's a given for most of them. It's a given for us as adult speakers as well. Sometimes we don't feel comfortable using the language. We need a certain amount of confidence. But I would say if a student raises their hand and they participate in Spanish, you acknowledge the answer, but you encourage the use of the language, but probably not spoken language. That's going to come later. I'm going to tell you what I would do. So I would say, okay, great, excellent answer. Now, why don't you try writing it down in English and show it to me at the end of the class, right? And in that sense, he starts, putting their thoughts, or they start putting their thoughts into paper. Then you can work with them like, okay, so look, these are some of the mistakes you make. Okay, read it to me. Read it to me, only to me, okay? So you need to help, obviously, that student build confidence, and eventually, probably one day that student is going to surprise you and say and try to say the answer in English, because he or she knows that you are backing him up, right? That you have his back, that you will help him. Yeah.
Yeah. May I do another question, please? Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
If the question needs a large answer and a phrase, a complete phrase, and the child says only a word, what have I to do with him? Allowed it?
I would say, like I said, I would always praise a student's effort to answer in English, even if it's only one word. And I would also praise a student for answering, even if it's in Spanish, because they are putting themselves out there. So I would acknowledge it. I will praise it, but then I would have to come up with a strategy to help that student. Okay. So if I say, okay, great, now, and you use your fingers, right? So for example, if the student said, I don't know, or I don't can, right? I don't can write, something like that. I don't can write. Okay, you say, okay, great. Now listen, pay attention. I don't can write. I don't can write. Don't, all gone. I can't write. I can't write. Okay, can you say it again? I can't write. Okay, don't, all gone. So a lot of fingers, a lot of facial gestures, right? So you can do this on the board, you can do this, or you can acknowledge it and praise it. And then, like I said, just come up with a strategy to work. Probably that's a student that needs a little bit more micro teaching, like a one-to-one approach, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss
Thank you,
Rocio.
Miss
Thank you,
Rocio, too.
Elizabeth.
Oh,
Thank you
thank you.
for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure teachers are taking a lot of strategies and activities so they can have a successful starting of the school year. Thank you. Thank you, National Geographic. Thank you for participating in our event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Okay?
much. So on
Thank
behalf
you.
of National Geographic Learning, thank you. Thank you everyone for having me, and happy teaching. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Goodbye, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you so much. Dear
you.
teachers, now
What we got?
it's time, yes, to have a
Let's
picture,
see.
yes, with Elizabeth.
Yeah, okay,
Yes,
that's
have a
right. Yes,
picture.
yes.
Yes, turn on your
Picture. I
camera.
may,
The picture.
yes, turn on your cameras for the picture of our third session.
Yes.
Make us look nice, pretty. Some
Nice,
Photoshop.
you.
Nice
We can also
reactions.
see,
Show
we can
your
also see the
reactions,
friends
please.
from National Geographic Learning. Thank you for being
Thank you so
here.
much.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Enrique. Okay,
Yes.
thank you for being
Yes.
here. We're sharing with
Hi, my dear
our
friend.
partners from National Geographic Learning. Thank you. Say hello for the picture.
welcome.
Say hello.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hello, hi.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Okay, Aime, ¿nos dices si ya está?
Una más, por
Una
favor.
más, una más.
Una más.
Hey.
Day.
for the social media, for our
Yeah.
social media.
Listo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you
Now we
so
continue
much.
here. We continue here because we have something else for you.
Yes.
What we have, our
Yes, it's raffle time. It's raffle time.
raffle time. What is the
Yes.
prize, Lourdes?
Oh, you know that the prize, dear teachers, it's because we have, well, you know, we have virtual courses from our friends from CTS. ¿no? Nosotros tenemos nuestro partner, ustedes lo conocen, CTS Customized Training Services, quien se encarga de apoyarnos también con todo lo que es la parte académica, el apoyo para el entrenamiento de los docentes. Y vamos a tener 3 becas para el programa de capacitación que ellos tienen para el primer bimestre. ¿Sí? Durante el primer bimestre se va a llevar a cabo y vamos a tener 3 prizes. Yes,
3 more.
okay.
3 more. Because
Yes.
we have
Oh,
like, all the sessions.
Sorry, Patricia.
Yes, of course. Before we get into the raffle, please, Aime va a colocar el link de la encuesta. ¿ok? En el chat
Yes.
box, ya saben, es importante contar con su opinión. Ahí me va a compartir ahí el link de la encuesta. Mientras Benji, ¿ok? I think he is ready for the
I'm ready.
raffle. Yes, you are. I'm going
Yes,
to
we are ready for the raffle. So we're going
Yes.
to see who are the 3 winners for these
course.
courses, right? So let's
Yes.
share the screen.
Yes.
Okay, so there are 75 as participants today. So we're going to see who are the winners, right? So
Yay.
let's see.
Recuerden,
There are
por
3
favor, que
winners.
tienen que llenar el enlace, ¿no? Aime, si pasas el enlace, porque aquí somos más personas, y es
Sí.
para sus certificados.
Ujú.
¿Sí?
Ok,
Exacto.
ahorita lo paso nuevamente.
Gracias, Aime.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, here we go. So let's start. 1, 2, 3. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck. 2, 1. And the winners. Oh,
Miss
Sharon
Sharon,
Cayetano.
are you here?
Yes, yes, Visita.
Hey,
Yes,
Miss
here.
Sharon, nice to
Thank
see
you.
you.
the first winner.
Congratulations.
The second
Then,
winner.
Thank you so much.
David Romero Fernández.
David
Yes,
Ángel
I'm here.
Romero.
Yeah.
I'm here, Mrs.
Here,
Here.
here.
David.
Congratulations,
Hi.
David.
At
And the
least
last one, Rocío Beatriz Barra. Ah, Rocío Barra. Yes.
Oh, mi Rocío,
Oh.
you
Here
deserve
I
it.
am.
Lucky you.
Lucky you.
Yes,
Congratulations.
so here we have the 3 more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you see, I have something important, of course.
Yes,
tomorrow-
Patricia, because tomorrow we have a nice and important meeting too.
Yes,
Yes.
with parents and with all the family, ¿ok? Dentro de nuestro ciclo Dialoguemos en Familia, que ya lo venimos desarrollando, este es el tercer año que tenemos nuestro ciclo, tenemos ya esta charla de consejos para una buena alimentación antes del retorno a clase, importantísimo, con nuestra especialista, nutricionista Josefina Chávez. Mañana a las 6 de la tarde lo comparten con toda la familia y así vamos a estar tranquilos de cómo vamos a preparar las loncheras.
Exacto.
cómo nos
Uy,
vamos a
sí,
alimentar.
ya la próxima semana, para
Así
algunos.
es.
Sí, ya nos toca
Yes.
preparar la lonchera. Muy
Okay,
bien.
so again, thank you so much for being here in this
Yes.
third session. And remember, we are meeting again at 7 o'clock, 7
Mhm.
o'clock in the same Zoom link, okay?
Yes.
So we are going to be waiting for you for our last session of this
Yes.
whole day. Thank you again and see you at 7. Thank
See
you.
you at 7, dear teachers.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Thank you,
Bye. See you at
Nutesa.
7.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
You.
See you at
later.
7.
Bye.
Closing
See you at
room.
7.